So, stablecoins are what we are to discuss here today, and we have a great set and a mix, I think, representing different parts of this industry, I would say, that has become more and more important for the whole of everything that has to do with tokenization. So, starting with you, Bernard, a brief introduction of all of you, where you're from, and high level what you're doing.
Good afternoon. I'm Bernard. I'm from SAP. I'm leading an interesting team at SAP called the SAP Digital Currency Hub. And I assume many of you know SAP, so we are the leading enterprise application and business AI company. And you may wonder, what does such a company do here on that panel? I mean, we are probably not as cool as a Bitcoin Swiss. We are probably a little older, but we do very exciting stuff. So we really want to change the way people drive B2B payments. So it's all about what we do, what my team does. It's about what we call payment without boundaries. Making payments instant, 24/7, low cost, irrespective of where you are in the world, and that secure and traceable. And I think this fundamentally will change how businesses pay in the future. And of course, all that relies on stablecoins as the means of exchange running on blockchain rails. And I think this is a fundamental shift that we are discussing here, and I'm very honored being here on the panel.
Honored to have you on. Halvor?
My name is Halvor Bakke-Veiby. I'm a rocket engineer from Norway and the co-creator of MUSD, a stablecoin created by Riften Labs, our startup firm. And MUSD, it's 100% collateralized, on-chain, traceable stablecoin, where you can actually see that the coins have a backing. So yeah, we love DeFi. We run the biggest DEX on Bitcoin Cash, and now the biggest stablecoin. So yeah.
Timo?
Yes, hello, my name is Timo. I'm the CFO of Bitcoin Swiss. Bitcoin Swiss is probably the oldest crypto broker in Switzerland, and today still the largest crypto player in Switzerland. We do trading, custody, are the fourth largest custodial staker globally, actually, and we also do some lending. And what qualifies me for the panel is that we also launched a stablecoin, the XCHF, in 2018, which we are now winding down due to wonderful new FINMA regulation.
Perfect. So we have a lot of things within this sphere to catch up on, to better understand. And how many of you in this room owns a stablecoin? Fairly well. So we are pretty native in terms of the landscape. So I'll not bore you with facts you already know, but I think stablecoins needs to be put into perspective that it might be used for more than what it originally was intended for, that the DeFi degens that were trading tax-free crypto were swapping it due to the volatility, so they could sit still for a period and swap into another crypto in some matter. That was sort of the starting use case for why we got stablecoin into cryptos in general. Otherwise, crypto people hate fiat, so why peg something towards the horrible dollar or euro? That's sort of the mantra. However, when we see this one going forward, and there's lots of different ways to, measure settlement volumes, etc., when you measure it towards the ordinary fiat world, but still, when you have settlement numbers from like Amex and MasterCard, which is around 1 to 2 trillion US dollars per year, and then you have players like Visa, who is around 10 to 12 trillion dollars in settlements. And if we look into stablecoins markets, the last 2 years, they have actually been close to the settlement volumes of Visa, of being around to all, how you measure it, 7, 8, 9, 10 trillion US dollars. So it's definitely not insignificant. We can add to it that also naturally a player like Visa, TradFi player, they issued a report on stablecoins, and where they said, yeah, but still, it's 90% of all these transactions of settlement sort of that are bots, robots trading that is just doing it. It's not real transactions like we go and pay with our credit card. So that's what I would like to bring on to this panel, to see the landscape of involvement, not seeing out blindly on the big numbers of some matter, but bring the realistic picture. So I think maybe Halvor, starting out with the DeFi landscape, you being a native, but having a realistic picture towards the whole thing. Even though you run a DEX, you have built your own synthetic stablecoin. How are your views in terms of how you see the DeFi market develop or evolve over times now?
Yeah, I totally agree. This thing about what we need a stablecoin for. This is a question that comes up often. Shouldn't we move away from the United States dollar, and should we just use crypto? And in our case, just use Bitcoin Cash. Well, all DEX activity and all decentralized finance activity relies on tons of people all around the world providing liquidity to actually help other people be able to swap and do other stuff. Thing is, we figured this pretty early that people that like Bitcoin Cash, if they want to just put their liquidity out there in the world and earn on it, they have to expose themselves to some other assets also to have a trading pair. And this was very hard when there were no stable coins on our chain. And the introduction of stablecoin, it does so that people that only like Bitcoin Cash and maybe not all the other assets on top of this chain can expose themselves to just this underlying asset. And stablecoins are the most important thing in all of DeFi, actually. If you look at the volumes on all the biggest DEXs on the world, you see that basically all of the volume is some crypto and a stablecoin. Kind of non-stablecoin trading pairs aren't that popular, actually. So it's super important, and we overlooked this actually in the early days of our firm, and we figured we need to make a stablecoin, and nobody else did so.
But yeah, Timo.
Yeah, I want to make the lead from our world to Bernhard's world, I believe.
Exactly, that was my
because I think until today, stablecoins are mostly really used for settlement as a collateral. That's also what Bitcoin Swiss uses for OTC settlements, for derivatives collateral, etc., for our trading purposes.
And that's my point towards. Do you have the numbers in terms of identification towards your customers and clients? Are they using it for core DeFi trading further, or do you see corporates coming in? Do you have a percentage number-wise of your customers dealing with it in different ways?
Well, our customers would basically only use it as settlement. And then it doesn't really matter if you're a high net worth individual or an asset manager trying to settle whatever trade or credit line you have outstanding with us. So I cannot give you any leads into that space. But what you see is the number of transacting wallets with stablecoins increasing independent of the transaction volumes, also of the exchanges, which shows you there's a shift. And I think this shift is basically just starting with things that Bernhard is going to allude to, where stablecoins are not used as a settlement currency, but as a store of value for evolving countries with high inflation, for example, with cross-border payments, transmittance. And if I think about all the millions we pay for advisors telling us how to operate and make our working capital more efficient, and then having a stablecoin settlement immediately instead of +2 or +3, that's where the future, a lot of the future actually lies. And that's, I think, where SAP plays a big role.
Absolutely. I will bring that forward. But first of all, welcome, Anna. A little too much traffic here in some weather. But please make a brief introduction of yourself if you take Bernhard's microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Magnus. So my name is Anna Tutova. I'm CEO of Coins Telegram. We have a group of companies. So we have a news website, as well PR marketing agencies. So we help companies with the promotion in the space. And as well, we produce documentary films about Web3 and blockchain adoption. So the first documentary we made in El Salvador, the first country which adopted Bitcoin as official currency. So it was mentioned that some countries now refer to holding USDT or stable coins as a hedge against inflation of their local currencies. With El Salvador, we see completely different shift when they just adopted Bitcoin as their national currency. So it's actually quite a funny legal collision sometimes.
Indeed, and that's something that we will discuss further going on here. But like you said, Tim, and what I was leading up to as well, Bernhard, on your side on the case, like you said yourself, you might be call it the boring TradFi actor that comes into a emerging landscape of degens and tech natives that has maybe a different view than that they might even know about what SAP is in terms of our ERP system in general. But the reason for why I invited you here is because I personally see it, and I know Halvor and Timo and Anna as well sees this one from a very important point of view, that if we are to use stablecoins to something more than just DeFi activity sort of thing, we also need TradFi actors in here. And that's what you have actually done. And I think your project has gone a little under the radar on media in general, I would say, in terms of actually how valuable that is and how well functioning it is. So just to give you sort of the brief summary before I give the word to you, Bernard, is that PayPal, which I presume all of you know, they paid an invoice to my former employee, EY, Ernst & Young. I was their Nordic blockchain innovation lead there for 10 years before I started for myself recently. And they paid an invoice using their PayPal, their own stablecoins. And this was executed on the SAP platform in their ERP system. So it means when they paid the invoice, it was an ordinary invoice that was created with VAT and everything on, but it was just a protocol infrastructure layer that was added in the ERP system. So when the payment was carried out, it went immediately with the stablecoin instead of going through X amount of intermediaries, spending time and money doing it. So it was a direct transfer in some matter. So if you could elaborate a little around that solution and that the specific use case that was carried out just before Christmas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So PayPal is a key customer of ours, and I think Timo, you nicely said working capital management is of essence. And if I look into the United States, ACH clearing sometimes takes 2 to 3 days. So you basically lock capital up to 2 to 3 days, and that was the kind of driver for our customer PayPal to move to a more modern, to a faster rail. Now, as you can imagine, PayPal is a fintech on the one end, but it's a large corporation also on the other end with very strict treasury processes. What does that mean? They don't want to do everything DeFi, throw everything away that they have established from also a controls perspective. So they want to be as traditional, enjoying the benefits of the blockchain technology. So what we did is the following. So they book their invoice as they book any other invoice. They just choose a different way of payment when booking the invoice. We pick that invoice up during what we call a payment run, when we basically consolidate all invoices that an enterprise has for payments and spin the invoices that go via the blockchain rail to the new product, to the digital currency hub, and then we basically create the blockchain transaction, book the blockchain transaction, check the execution, check the finalization on the blockchain, and basically report back to the ERP system. So for the treasurer of PayPal, there's hardly any difference to a normal payment. It's just faster. We lock up working capital, and if it's going cross-border, it's cheaper. And I think this is a really interesting value proposition also for very traditional enterprises. So for a typical treasurer, locking up 3 to 5 days working capital, I think that can amount to interest rates of billions. And also giving you one more example, I was talking to a leasing company. Actually, they do the leases for one major auto manufacturer. And that auto manufacturer is very, very demanding. At the last day of the month, they want to get the money for all leases that have been closed at the same day. And that company has typically encountered banking closing times on Fridays at 2 p.m. Now what do? They hardly can move money. They cannot fulfill their customers' requirement. If you go on blockchain, you're instant, you're 24/7. You can settle a deal that has happened 11:59 p.m. at the same day. I think this will really change and alter the way businesses can act. And last, to add probably something on the SME space, we see small companies also changing their business model, moving from large upfront purchases to subscription-based models. Now, if you have an invoice where you charge probably 500 euro as a European enterprise to, let's say, Latin America, and you incur payment fees of 40 euro, I mean, that's insane, right? It's basically 8% loss. On the blockchain, on Polygon or Solana, on those fast and cheap networks, you're in the range of cents, which means you can cut down costs by 80 to 90%. And those are the messages that do resonate with my customers today. So it's it's not about the tech story that we all sing here in the room. It's more the kind of real world benefits that you get out of the tech. And then sometimes, yes, we do need to explain what blockchain is, what a stablecoin is. And I'm glad that Timo is also on the panel. Liquidity is probably sometimes the most difficult thing. Where do I purchase a stablecoin? How do I custody a stablecoin? That's I'm glad why companies, partners such as Bitcoin Swiss are kind of unfolding and also kind of moving beyond that just trading collateral of a crypto asset. So super exciting times also in the more business-minded world.
Send all your SAP customers to us. We can on and off ramp immediately.
We'll work on that, Timo.
And that was dealt with in the EY PayPal transaction. It was a certain competitor of yours that I'm kind to not mention the name of, but no, I think on that side we're all in this together, and it's like on your side, Bernard, it's not like you have only one type of stablecoin available. You can use several ones, and it's also down to a matter of fact that you, among all the players, of course, Bitcoin Swiss and everyone has a great focus on the compliance side, but also when SAP is to get their approval through their, call it, dinosaur systems like EY has of compliance and structure, we need to be 100% sure that this is legal and compliant. So that's also why it's a trusted element that I think will help the whole industry, that you say, hey, it's just calling up Bernard literally, and I'm not sure how fast it goes in with HANA, but I think you can do it in less than a day, have the module directly in, and you're able to pay it directly. So I think that's a very important element that I mentioned, like has been not written about in media in general. People think stablecoins still are only for DeFi degens, but it's more like now is the shift that comes to corporates actually. And it's pretty strong names coming in with PayPal and EY in this example, and you have several other clients and customers dealing with it. So I think that's a highly important element to pay notice to.
And think about what happens once those stablecoins actually accrue some value during the time, because they're backed with treasuries, etc., and that gets forwarded in a compliant manner towards the stablecoin holder, like Ethena does originally today. I think that's probably till 10 years away from SAP, but then the working capital requirement, which is cut down by 30%, actually accrues interest during the time of the transaction, and that's going to be a complete game changer going forward.
Yeah, it will be a total different way of treasury in the blockchain world. And I think we need to change that together. And it's not us. I mean, we can enable it more from the enterprise perspective, but we need the entire ecosystem, like Bitcoin Swiss, like the stablecoin issuers, and of course also like media. I think probably for me the hardest part is to really get the education done on the treasury side of the house. So this is not just the kind of fad, that is not kind of the gray zone of the house, that this is something really serious. It's a technology that really can drive things massively. So I'm looking very much to you, Anna, to really spread the word that this is becoming real, and it's not becoming real in the future. The future is starting today. So we need to educate also people beyond the kind of crypto bubble.
And how do you see this, Anna, in terms of adoption in general when you are everywhere? We meet each other everywhere. How do you see people's perceptions surrounding everything from the degen side to the corporate side?
So I see the biggest use cases for trading, of course, but as well crypto payments, and many companies as well, big corporations have been already accepting not only stable coins, but as well big currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well some others accept, for example, Ripple, XRP, Solana, and some major cryptocurrencies as a payment method. And currently we have over 30,000 merchants worldwide which accept cryptocurrency, and among them we see such big companies as Microsoft, KFC, Expedia, and many others. So with every year we see bigger and bigger adoption, and especially now we see as well quite more regulations, and as well regulations can be as well another trick point, because currently as well in especially in Europe since 30th December I think we have as well adopted travel rules. So if you send more than 1,000 euros, there should be your wallet labeled to whom this transaction goes to. So it maybe as well impose some more taxations on those payments and etc. But overall, the adoption of the cryptocurrency and stablecoins payments is a matter of the banking and the payment gateways. Currently, traditional banks are still quite conservative. They don't really service any crypto companies. So the only solution is payment gateways. But we see as well the bigger adoption from the major players, like for example, Stripe is doing the payment processing of cryptocurrency payments. It's not only the early players, like crypto native players who launch the crypto and fiat on-ramps, off-ramps, but as well more traditional biggest payment processors now operate with crypto. So that's great to see.
Absolutely. And what you also mentioned up on here in terms of call it regulation and the whole landscape in general, what stablecoins is all about is like every other fiat currency. It's about trust, sort of saying, in terms of what is underlaying there. And that's some discussions that we have had for quite some years within this industry. And we see now that, like in your case, and you talked about it also, you were on a panel yesterday, Halvor, about how you guys actually need to move out of the EU because the attributes of the tokens that you are building in your stablecoin do not necessarily match up with, call it, the regulatory understanding of the framework here. So in order to be able to build and drive the landscape further, you need to get out. And it's not like you want to do it, you would prefer to stay here, but you just cannot do it in terms of how fast the landscape is evolving. So if you look into some of the most common stablecoins in general, the two preferred or top ones is Circle's USDC against the dollar, and also Tether with the USDT against the dollar as well. And we see that Tether has the strongest market position in general, and they have a very strong market position in Asia specifically. But in Europe now, we have seen sort of the initiatives also that even though in crypto there's not so much trading within euro, but still we see the initiative like Circle going in and making a euro. You have a Euro E from Finland, etc. We have different initiatives coming up on that one. But still the euro market is in stablecoin today is, less than 1% of the total. So I think it would be interesting to hear your thoughts surrounding also the evolvement of this landscape. Do you think we see a shift within the EU that will lead to corporates actually preferring to use naturally MiCA-compliant stablecoins because they cannot do anything else, and that will become into a eurozone instead of US dollars, and call it the rest of the world will prefer to use Tether in any kind of way, or if we have a pretty forward-leaning president in the upcoming president now in the United States that tends to launch whatever token initiatives, we have no control of what will happen. So if someone gets hold of him, if he gets in town, it would be kind of interesting to hear his views. But hearing first of all from you, what's your thoughts on this evolvement of the landscape in general? Because that's a very important element of how I think we will see the contours evolve in 1 to 3 years. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, Trump coin is not MiCA compliant, guys, just for the record. Well, and
it's not a stable coin.
Yeah, it's highly unstable. Well, there's a couple of different ways in which you can make a stable coin. We have seen different coins. Kind of the best thing is maybe in Europe would be to have a bank account with €1 million and then have 1 million stable euros as a cryptocurrency, and then everyone can just see the backing and see that it's 1-to-1. This would be the best in Europe. The second best is to use crypto, or it's actually the best in my opinion, where you just have collateral and you can see it on chain, and this backs up the currency. This is not allowed right now in Europe, according to MiCA. So this is what made us actually sell all our assets from our Norwegian firm and to a entity in St. Kitts and Nevis, just because we have created the best stablecoin and the most transparent and open stablecoin as we can. And this is not allowed. It's very sad, actually, but I think the landscape in Europe will move towards, as has been said earlier, just using stablecoins and doing payments in stablecoins just because it's better and faster. Not even to try and adopt new technology just because you actually can save like business days on it, and then for big companies doing big transactions, this amounts to high volumes. So I think stable coins will grow in Europe. I'm sure of this, and we will see more kind of stable euro kind of coins, and I think it will be issued by big companies, by big MiCA compliant companies, and not it will be a kind of a iron curtain, I think, in the coming years between the United States and Europe, where at least for the next 4 years, America will have kind of continue this small wild west of crypto that we had some fun in 2017, 18, and Europe will regulate, and the end will be good, but we will have some figuring out to do in the next coming years in Europe.
So I agree with what you said. The euro stablecoins will come, but they will come from big companies, and that's due to the regulation, which kind of prohibits true innovation. I mean, MiCA says you need 2 to 3% equity. That basically kills every young startup trying to build their own stablecoin, and will only make it possible for larger corporations to eventually succeed who have that starting capital. Additionally, you need 30 to 60%, depending on your size, in bank deposits. So that's also kind of limiting your returns. So that also limits your net income, and that then limits your equity. So it's going to be very difficult, and that's actually super sad. What the Europeans and unfortunately also the Swiss haven't understood yet, that the stablecoin thing is a huge market and a huge benefit to the country, actually. I think the stablecoins of the US dollar are now close to approaching 1% of the M2 supply of the US dollars. Think about how that plays in. The stablecoins are the 16th largest holder of the US treasuries, so they're buying the debt of the countries issuing the currency. And I think in an economic environment like we are, where basically everything's built on debt, if you kill an institution or an innovation which is capable of buying all that debt, if you let it run, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. And I think that's very sad, and we need a more open-minded regulation on those topics.
Yeah, and maybe let me just add in more from a corporate perspective. You really do need a euro-denominated stablecoin with deep liquidity. If we look at all the coins that are out there, even the Euro C hardly has any liquidity. So business transactions are not typically 500, 5,000 euro. It's millions, if not hundreds of millions. And we don't have any stablecoin that has market capitalization in the range of billions, so it's hardly unusable. And we are just running also a customer pilot here in the Swiss-Austrian region, and the question was, what do we do as a kind of cross-border money movement? Do we take USDC or do we take a euro-denominated stablecoin? And the transaction sizes are plainly too big to use a euro-denominated stablecoin, which is sad, because I think we need a euro-denominated stablecoin as a society in Europe. And hopefully some of the big players will step in and provide now in the next 12 months a well-done European euro-denominated stablecoin.
I mean, SocGen, one of the players, is already doing that with Forge, issuing bank-backed euro stablecoins. So that's just what I'm referring to. It's going to be the big players who are capable to cope with the MiCA requirements and then provide those.
But also what the call it the underlying assets actually are, what they're backed and paid towards, because no one fully knows, for example, on Tether, what's pegged and backed behind it, because they have never publicly let themselves be audited, sort of saying. It's been built up on a consumption of a trust by they claiming and stating that, well, we have then put up assets, some in the bank, some on bonds, but also in bitcoins. So the majority of the market of the native crypto people, they are saying, oh, if they have acquired bitcoins continuously since 2014, they are actually over-collateralized now because of the price of the bitcoin. But what if you get a crash there, or on the other side, you could also have a crash in the native value of the dollar or the euro, for that matter of sake. Lots of people are also maybe expecting that even when Trump's get into a presidential role. So how do you see the geopolitical macro position here? What's the best position? Because MiCA is trying to draw up a framework, like you perfectly well said, of certain things. Get $1 in, get it in the bank, more or less. We need security for the people who is using this one. But what can I actually trust there? What's your prediction surrounding this one? Will Halvor have a brighter future if you look into the perspective of stablecoins? It's hard to predict, but say 5 to 10 years. What's just your verdict of that landscape then?
Me?
No, Timo. How do you see stablecoins going there? When you take into concern, we don't know certain for what's underlying assets. Do you think that it can be backed and pegged towards other, cryptos in general, and that will gain the trust sufficient enough? So you have the call it the algo security trading element of it instead of the hard cash in the bank and the risk volatility on it.
I believe the only until today, trustworthy asset which could be a collateral would be Bitcoin itself. Because it just needs the time and the trust of the people, and that's developing. That's why Tether is so successful, despite never providing any proper audits on their. They've just been in the market for so long and have not failed redemptions so far. So that's how they gained the trust of the people, and that's more a social thing than a verifiable thing. But I think going forward, and what I would have wished Mika to put in place was actually force the people to have proper audits, etc., and that could be on-chain audits. That would be the best, obviously, because that's clear and traceable for everyone. But also in the TradFi world could be real other audits that could prove the source of funds. Obviously, since Wirecard, we also know that fails in Germany from time to time. But there's a way to enforce that. But I still think these crypto-backed stablecoins have a future, and if you make them big enough and you have first the crypto degens trust them enough, then they will also find their way into the traditional world. Will just take longer.
Would you like to add something to it, Halvor?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at some point, having transparency is very important, but liquidity is king. And if your kind of product works and you have deep liquidity, people will just use it. Me personally, I have been for the past 5 years looking for someone to let me open a short position on the Tether. I would pour my entire net worth into this position, I can say. But yeah, I think that
it's a whole building.
Oh yeah, okay.
Saving energy.
Yeah, no, like our end game goal
Emergency.
with Cauldron, and our stablecoin, it's basically for people to just be able to go into a web page, go into our DEX, and just send each other money, just without any permission, without anyone being able to stop them. And yeah, this is kind of end game to move out of the trading and like degen stuff, and just have people use it to buy bread, actually.
We're getting close to an end here, but we have room for some questions, and I could also see that it was one hand that we've been raised. So also, if there's other, feel free to come up with some questions now.
Thanks, Magnus. Sebastian Becker here from the German Blockchain Association. I just wanted to add 1 or 2 comments or questions on the strategic debate. Of course, we refer to Tether as being part of the, let's say, dollar-backed ecosystem, but I think Paolo and his team are quite far away from the US administration, so we should also take that into account. One thing, and the second thing I'm interested in are energy-backed stablecoins, but of course you could say that Bitcoin is a hot form of energy, and we see tokenized energy, and you have water energy in Norway. In Germany we have all kinds of energy. We're not sure which one is the best, but this is also an angle to look at it going forward. No specific question, but maybe just on Tether, with Bitcoin Swiss, you're of course geographically close to Lugano and Paolo and the team. So what's your view on them aggregating all those bonds?
So I wouldn't be as aggressive to say I would bet all my money to short them as you would. But I think you can have liquidity, etc. What you want. What you in the end need is verifiability, and that's why we are in the crypto ecosystem. And as long as they do not commit to undergoing any significant audits or showing their reserves on chain, etc., then I really don't think players like Bitcoin Swiss will support them as much as they support a USDC token, for example. So when our clients ask us what they should do, we will probably always recommend them to stay on the Circle side of things. And what you said on collateral is actually very interesting, and we have a similar. So our former chairman and current still board member has just issued a X Swiss franc stablecoin, which is then again backed by crypto or equity, tokenized equity, etc. And the problem with those kind of topics, completely DeFi, so with a Dutch auction collateral, etc. It works wonderful, but for us it's very difficult to offer that to our clients because our clients expect the stablecoin to hold. And if we tell our clients the peg will come back within 2 weeks and it's going to be all great, they're not going to be happy for those 2 weeks. So the collateral is going to be is very, very important for all players, and there must be a collateral which really has no DPEG, also not for a short period of time.
Yeah, and just to add in, especially in the enterprise world, for a treasurer, they are horribly afraid of volatility. They are horribly afraid of volatility. So transparency in backing is a must. Otherwise, they don't go in. So Tether is not a stablecoin we ever talk about with customers. And second, they really like the non-crypto collateralized stuff. So really bank holdings, short-term government securities, so the circle way approach. This is what treasurers like today. For the good or for the bad, but at least without transparency, I think it's not an enterprise-grade stablecoin. And probably in ending, we also in SAP do not only work on stablecoin payments, we also do other cool stuff on the blockchain. My colleague has asked me to talk to also one word about the NFT project, so you can also issue NFTs for marketing purposes. And we just did create for that special group an NFT collection. Drop me an email, bernhard.schweiz@sap.com, and we will send you a link where you can claim your NFT.
Native degens. Yeah. You should get on a Christmas card list and you get an NFT. I got one. We had some more questions, and I think we to the debate also, like you perfectly well mentioned on Tether, one illustrated thing I think is like when it came up that Tether's or people started saying it's illegal in Europe or whatever. First of all, it's not illegal, but they're not MiCA compliant per se. But they have now acquired into a Maltese team that is MiCA compliant, so they have the connections in there. These guys are not stupid per se in themselves. And also, while they were, or everyone was discussing, MiCA is Tether is illegal due to MiCA, whatever. Instead, they just went to the UAE and said, no, we will just create a DRAM stablecoin now. And that puts also things into the world global economic picture. I think that it's very important to see it from a macro perspective of which regions you are reaching also in different kind of ways. So that's just an anecdote to add to the top of the Tether case that we could have spent the whole evening talking about here in itself. But leaving it for one question, who was what? You were first. Lots of questions.
Hello, my name is Wojtek Kaszycki. I'm the founder of Mobilum. We do around 40,000 transactions daily, and we just bought EMI to move into the EMT. I have one question because we are touching a lot about the crypto. I'm also a fan of crypto, but I believe that we are missing one very important piece of the information that basically what MiCA provides to the market is, let's say, the possibility for banks and e-money institutions to issue e-money, which they are doing since the beginning, as the blockchain stablecoin. So referring to your question, I believe this is like a huge impact to the liquidity because now everything that bank has on the balance sheet, the same for EMIs, can be transferred into the blockchain if the bank will decide so. So my question is, how do you see another business in my opinion, will come to the market very soon, which is like an exchanges of different EMTs. I believe that in next year in Europe, we will have like 50, 100 EMTs fighting for the presence and basically for the liquidity. And there will be like a huge potential of what Curve did, for example, right? So pools just exchanging EMTs with another EMTs. How do you see that market? And second step, and second question is because I believe that also very undeserved piece of market, which is mostly from the stablecoin perception now secured by the XRP, is the cross-border payments. Because basically in EMT, it's not just like the fact that it's on blockchain, so it's fast. But according even to the SEC rules and according to the MiCA rules, if you onboard two parties from the traveler on your blockchain or to your institution, you don't have to supervise the peer-to-peer transaction. So it means you onboard the player, you create a system where everything is instant. So what do you think about those two issues?
I mean, maybe I can pick up the first issue with the number of tokens, e-money tokens. So I think in general we have to distinguish between a true stable coin and a commercial bank money token. So that for me is a big distinguishment. Now, I'm very bullish on stable coins because I think they are easy exchangeable. So they are very ubiquitous. I'm a little bit more cautious on CBMTs as long as the exchangeability problem is not solved, because if I'm banking with bank A, you bank with bank B, your bank cannot accept my stablecoin token unless they do have a relationship, and then you get into all those networks of correspondent banking, which we basically wanted to avoid, all those intermediaries. So I think for me this is probably a step back. So I do believe more in the kind of true stablecoins. Now, with that being said, I believe there will be also big players in Europe emerging. So we see two global US dollar denominated players, Tether and USDC. They de facto command the market. And I would bet that in Europe you probably see also 3-4 players commanding the market.
Yeah, I agree. It's a winner takes all, or duopoly, or triopoly, or something like that market. I don't think it has a long run with hundreds of issuers. It will start like that. It always starts like that when there's money to make. A lot of people try it. I don't even think actually there's a lot of money to make due to the MiCA regulation, as I just mentioned. So I think it will start from the top, unfortunately. The cross-border remittance question is a very interesting one. I think it's highly under-leveraged, crypto in general, and also the stable coins for the remittance purposes. We've been talking about that for many years, but what we see as the main adoption place is basically having access to US dollars when your currency is basically inflating away. That's why you see the high adoption in countries like Turkey over the last years, Argentina, etc. They have limited access to other currencies, and then they can access that through crypto, through a USDC, and that's basically really the store of value for them. But unfortunately, the remittance part is still very, very low, in my opinion.
We have one more question there.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, and thanks for the panel discussion. I'm with Layer Zero, so we enable interoperability for many of the parties that were discussed, like Ethena and PayPal and USDT Zero as well. I did read about the SAP use case, so Bernard, I think that's amazing, really good. But I also come from TradFi, so I know how difficult it can be to get to production. So tell us a little bit more about that. What are the plans in terms of adoption, next steps within SAP?
I mean, we started with one key customer. Of course, PayPal, EY were the ones that we can name publicly. We have currently a so-called early adoption release out in the market. So we do pre-select customers for product and use case fit, basically. And we do plan to have our product generally available roughly around about mid of this year, around about our big trade fair called Sapphire in the May timeline. So we will have a mainstream product. It remains to be seen how well it's getting adopted, and this is again where I'm calling on Anna and her colleagues. It's really, really about education, not only here in the kind of more blockchain crypto-minded space. It's more about education in the corporate space, in the treasury space, and this is also why I'm so glad that EY was the first counterparty that did accept the payment, and I think this can't be underestimated. I mean, they are not only a great consulting firm, they are also an audit firm, and if an audit firm can accept a stablecoin payment, why can't every company accept a stablecoin payment? So from a product perspective, we are going GA roughly mid of year, and then we do need to basically see how well it's getting adopted.
Yeah, thanks, that's impressive. And just one more question around that. So the capital efficiency benefits and the cost savings, are you able to push those through to your customers? Will they benefit immediately from adopting the new product?
I mean, the clear answer is absolutely yes, right? So we do not take any commission. I mean, we are a software business. I think this is also very, very important to us. So we do not custody assets. So this is done by our partners. We do not provide a stable coin. Of course, we do connect to exchanges. So they do buy a software license as they buy any other software license that is very, very reasonably priced. On the one end, they pay the so-called gas fee, and that's it. So there's no commissions on anything. And I think, yes, of course, by that we pass the savings straight through, and it's not only the kind of savings in terms of transaction cost, but it's also the savings in terms of capital efficiency, basically reducing your working capital needs.
Yeah, so I work in finance. I didn't even know that it was trad finance. So I think us in real finance, we didn't know that we were called trad finance. But I work in institutional investment management within real assets and alternative assets. Do you see you have this problem with your U.S. treasuries? There's also problems and volatility in crypto. Is there a real opportunity for real asset collateral within stablecoins?
I think what I just wanted to say is that the difficulty there is the oracle problem. So what's the value of the collateral, the real world asset below, and how fast can you transport and how verified can you transport the valuation of the real world asset to the blockchain? And then it's about the question, is there a mechanism to sell the real world asset if it's undervalued, so the peg would collapse? And all these processes need to be very smooth and fast, because basically for global adoption you need an pegged stablecoin, and it cannot unpeg even for the slightest period of time. So I think it's a very, very difficult use case to have real world assets as collateral for a stablecoin. I think going forward that might play out differently if the oracle are smoother, etc. But I currently am not going to offer any of those stablecoins to our clients. And they are already the highest risk-affine people we have in the industry.
I think a lot of my question may have partially been answered, but I'm curious on your thoughts of how sort of attempted de-dollarization may affect the general volatility and volume that you're seeing going through just main stablecoins, USDT, USDC, what that might affect both in terms of volume and flow, but then how it's going to affect for corporate treasury activities and things like that in the future.
I mean, let's get started with the corporate treasury activities. So that kind of 100% peg, I think this is most critical, because this also depends on how you can account for a stable coin. So if we look into IFRS accounting principles, if we take a stable coin that is MiCA compliant, we can account for it as cash equivalent, so it's as good as any kind of other form of money, which I think is great for a treasurer, because they don't want to have valuation differences. I think this is, again, going back to that 100% peg, so this is extremely critical. That needs liquidity on the one end. Liquidity for me is more important in order to carry out the transactions. If it's a well-known stable coin, if it's really, really stable, if you back it by bank deposits, for instance, on multiple banks, I mean, it's even more secure than your cash holdings with a bank, which is not insolvency protected. So a well-known stable coin, irrespective of the market capitalization, is fine as long as it's MiCA compliant. For a treasurer, you need to have that kind of market cap in order to carry out transactions. At least that's more the treasury perspective.
The question would be, let's talk about the BRICS, for example, and they trying to de-dollarize the world. What currency would they issue their stable coin in? Because obviously they all have their own currency, and that would make it, once again, a valuation problem for all these corporates if it's not really pegged one-to-one to their local currency. So I believe in order to the de-dollarization to take place, it must be a big dominated currency to push that, and that would be basically the euro or the Chinese yuan or the Japanese yen. But then you need the regulation for that in order to grow from the small seeds we have today. And as we stated, it's 99.76% of the stablecoin is in US dollar denominated. So there's a long runway for anyone challenging the dollar supremacy on the stablecoins.
Yeah, I agree on this. The Chinese have been pretty clear that they don't want the yuan to be the world reserve currency, actually. They are very tight on exporting yuan to out of mainland China. So, I mean, I don't think the euro would take over as a world reserve currency. So, I think we will live a couple of more years with the dollar, actually.
Transfer the mic for the last question.
Hey, Michael Coletta with Alpha Point. Prior to joining Alpha Point, I actually spent 7 years at Ripple trying to build the cross-border payments network using XRP. Touching on the remittance use case, which was something that I think we failed miserably competing against SWIFT. And that was part of the reason why I ended up parting ways with Ripple last year. I think the predefining issue was with the fact that there was a complex payment termination method for remittance use cases with digital wallets, cash pickups, etc. How do you think that stablecoins, now obviously Ripple has just issued RLUSD, how do you think stablecoins are going to be better positioned to address those issues with remittances, which in my opinion, those are like, you know, the real world problems that crypto can solve?
I mean, spot on. The problem, I think, is the most burning problem. And I think if we look at some data points, it's 80% savings that you easily can get out of it on kind of a billion fee market. I mean, it's massive, the savings that you can get out of it. I think in general, the question is how quickly do you ramp on an asset versus and ramping it off. So if I take an asset like Bitcoin or XRP or whatever for remittance purposes, I ramp it on, I transfer it, I ramp it off. I mean, yes, you can do that, but I think this is even more unfamiliar to a treasurer than taking a cash equivalent stablecoin. Again, a well done, MiCA compliant in the European sense, cash equivalent stablecoin, I think is easier to communicate to a treasurer. And I think you're right. I think the industry talks about it since years. Is the time now right? I don't know. We bet also on it. We see remittances as one of the key use cases. I think it will start like never launched. So if big companies drive it, then as a supplier you suddenly get stuck with stablecoins. Do you immediately want to ramp it off? Probably not. If you have opportunities to get interest on the stablecoins, for instance by other tokenized instruments, you keep them. Then you also want to pay your suppliers, and then you get into that virtuous circle. Will that start this year? Maybe, maybe not. I'd rather bet it will take 1 or 2 or 3 more years. I think you at least need to, at least from a European perspective, a well-made Euro-denominated stablecoin. We need to also educate treasurers, and if a couple of big enterprises and PayPal, EY, I think are great brand names. I'm just quoting them again because this is the ones I can publicly speak about. I think this can really then change, but it might take time.
I have many questions to you, so let's meet after that. I would be very interested to see why that failed so much and why you call it a failure against SWIFT, because I think the use case is massive.
But I think you summarized it well. Sorry, courses of just time here now. We would love to take the discussion further, but I'm sure you can grab hold of these amazing persons outside later. But I think you summarized it well in terms of that it will take time, but it's an ecosystem that I'm pretty sure that will create the infrastructure of the future of finance, not necessarily TradFi, but finance in general, that it will play a key role in the totality there. So that's why it is great to have sort of all the representatives from the basement builders and doers like you, Halvor, and the infrastructure provider, and the ones who is also doing it from the corporate side and combining the whole thing, because that's what we need in general, a more efficient actually payment infrastructure system that to have in place. So by that, I would like to thank all of you for listening in, and also a great thanks to the panel. A great round of applause for them. And we had on the agenda a little crypto surprise. And our little surprise is that we actually have a real president actually in the room. It might not be a US guy, you know, but we have a real president here, Vit, who is going to talk about something that is very, very important, and that's the element of freedom that I think summarized all of the topics that we have touched upon and talked to today. So I'll let you have 2 minutes of just raising your legs and so on, but I encourage you to come in afterwards and listen to Vit's talk about the importance of freedom and also how he has built up a new evolving nation, actually, of Liberland and all the attributes connected towards this one. So feel free to come in here again in 2 minutes, and Vit will enlighten us more. Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you.